Happy New Year, everybody in the Rise High community. Hoping that you had a wonderful Christmas and New Year's celebrations and looking forward to welcoming in 2023, which is officially in motion now, isn't it, Kristen?
It is underway, yes.
So you're here with Marissa and Kristen from Rise High, and today we thought we'd bring in the new year with giving you some really helpful tips and advice on some things that you can do this year to make this year the best financial year for you yet. And in particular, we thought we'd focus in on a report that's done every year. Every year there is a Canstar consumer report which outlines Australians' top concerns in regards to money. So that report was released just before Christmas. So today we thought we'd drill down into what are Australia's top financial concerns and also provide some tips and ideas for how you can overcome those concerns for your own situation and your own family to make sure that 2023 is the best financial year for you yet. Isn't that right, Kristen?
Yes, indeed.
So what we will be focusing on today is the concerns that came out of the Canstar Consumer Pulse report from 2022. What is this report, Kristen, and what does it sort of cover?
Yeah, so this report interviewed about just over 2,000 Australians over the age of 18 and really focuses in on what Australians see as their pain points for the upcoming year. And it also delved into a little bit about people's savings and spending habits and debt levels of, the general Australian population.
So what was the number one biggest concern of Australians in this report showing for the year ahead?
Yeah, so I think for 2023, the main concern of Australians is inflation.
Yep, that's a big one.
It is indeed. So look, inflation is made up of the general living costs, and I guess that's people are worried about those living costs increasing.
Yeah.
59% of Australians are listing concerns among a couple of main categories. So they are groceries, rent, energy and gas bills, mortgage interest rates more specifically, and petrol prices.
Yeah, it's a big concern, isn't it? And obviously there's it's not only the immediate impacts of inflation and the rising costs of all of these items that you've just talked about, but obviously, as we've seen over the past several months, that inflation has flow-on effects in terms of what the Reserve Bank does with interest rates, which once again impacts people's cost of living. So it definitely is a big concern, and our inflation is quite high at the moment. I think there was a stat in regards to how many Australians had confidence about the government getting inflation under control, and that was pretty alarming. Was that about 44%?
Yeah, 44% of Australians were quite concerned about inflation and had the feeling that the government combined with the Reserve Bank wasn't going to be able to get that inflation figure under control in the next 12
that's
months.
nearly half of Australians that are worried about that. So obviously that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And it is important as a country that we do manage inflation, because otherwise things can get a bit out of control. But it does seem like there is room for improvement. I think one of the things that has been pleasing to me to see is that many of the major banks have actually reassessed their inflation projections and have moved them downwards, which suggests that we're actually doing better with managing inflation than what was originally expected that we would do as a country. So that, I think, is a positive, definitely a positive sign that we are starting to get inflation under control. And in fact, we're doing it faster than what was originally predicted by most of the major bank economists. So that's quite pleasing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you seeing in the market that as a result of those revisions of estimates, are banks reacting to that with their fixed rates and things like that?
Yeah, there's definitely been a little bit of movement with the fixed rates. I think we were maybe expecting them to be a little higher than what they currently are, or to increase faster. But I think with these kind of revised, inflation predictions, that, they're maybe not quite going to skyrocket as high as we originally thought a couple of months ago.
Which is definitely good news.
Definitely.
So maybe let's drill down into some of these categories of spending that Australians are particularly concerned about. What was the top one on the list in terms of spending?
Yeah, so look, these do change from year to year, and it's
Yeah.
quite interesting looking at the differences, you know, from last year to this year. But this year, it's definitely groceries are the thing that Australians are most worried about, feeding their families, putting
Yeah.
food on the table. And I guess compared to previous years, 67% of Australians are reporting an increased weekly spend in their grocery bills.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it? And you know, I guess that's something that's not, it's not discretionary spending. You know, we all need food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I guess that does mean that some people are going to have to adjust potentially the type of groceries that they purchase.
Yeah, or just doing things like checking out your catalogues, budgeting, planning your meals, and not rushing to the supermarket at 5:30 on a Tuesday to do your shop for that night. I know that a lot of us are guilty of that, but I think
Yes.
planning and preparing and ensuring that you're buying things on special is definitely a good way to you know, be able to manage the grocery bill.
I completely agree. I think the other tip that a lot of our clients have found really useful is that many of them have switched to online grocery shopping, which not only is convenient for them, but also stops those impulse buys.
Yeah,
Like it's pretty
absolutely.
easy when you're at the supermarket
And you're hungry.
to get to throw a few extra items in the trolley than what you actually went there for. So I guess if you're, you know, doing your online shop, it probably is less likely. Or if you do like to go to the shops and do your shop, then just have a list, be prepared. You know, it probably helps to contain the costs a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was the next big expense
So-
that people were worried about?
The next one on the list was actually quite interesting. So, out of the people interviewed, 11% of them are concerned about rental costs
Yeah.
increasing. So, this was actually last on the list pre-COVID, so 2019. People weren't so concerned about rental increases, but it's actually skyrocketed up to the second on the list, looking forward to the 2023 year.
Yeah, it's a big one because it's, you know, definitely a great market if you're an investor and you have investment properties to lease out. But if you're a tenant, it has been really tough since COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does look like that's not really softening at the moment. You know, vacancy rates are at an all-time low, rents are increasing and still increasing. So I can understand that fear for tenants of actually having that rental expense increase. What are your suggestions for people that are worried about that, Kristen?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is if you are a tenant, remain a good tenant.
Yes.
So look after the property, making sure that you're maintaining everything, do a little bit of extra work in the garden.
Yeah.
Because I guess the worst thing is that your landlord or your property manager feels that you're not a good tenant, potentially kicking you out, getting someone in there, getting, you know, a higher rental.
Yeah.
So maintaining the property and generally being a well-behaved tenant is definitely going to work in your favour.
And I think what comes along with that is making sure you can meet your rent obligations on time every time. And if you are finding that your current rental is becoming too expensive, then you might need to have a really good conversation with your property manager early on rather than defaulting, because once you do get some defaults and once you do fall behind, that might make it more difficult to get another property in the future given such high you know, demand from tenants and such low vacancy rates. So you probably need to, if you are finding that where you have been living is starting to get too expensive, it's much better for you to work that out early and actually move to a cheaper area or a cheaper suburb or a smaller house so that you can actually avoid going into the red with your rent payments, and then that could affect you long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the other great thing to point out here is that often with many house purchases, you know, interest rates, yes, they have gone up, but they are still quite affordable. And, you know, often when we talk to people that are looking to buy their first home or get into the property market that have been tenants, their loan repayments aren't actually much more than what they were paying with rent. So even if you don't think you're in a position to buy a home, I'd really encourage you to come and speak to Rise High and speak to a mortgage broker to see what you would need to do to be in a position where you could buy your own home. Because
setting
obviously,
those goals, I think, and
Exactly.
understanding what's involved. A lot of people who are renting just go, it's too hard, I'm never going to be able to do that.
that's right.
And I think it is an achievable goal if you know what you're aiming for, if you know how to manage your expenses.
And I think a lot of people get scared off because they think they need to have a big deposit, but that's not necessarily the case. And even like nowadays, there's even more options for home buyers to do shared equity products with the lender. So, there are a lot of options out there to help people into home ownership. So I definitely think that if you are feeling a bit stuck in the rent trap and really want to have the control and flexibility of owning your own home, then maybe 2023 is your year, and we'd love to help you with some options on how to do that and set you on a plan and a pathway to get towards that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so what was the third biggest cost area that people were worried about?
So I don't think the third one on the list is too much of a surprise. They had 10% of the people interviewed were concerned with energy and gas prices.
Yeah, I mean, they just keep creeping up, especially if you don't really shop around, I find.
Yeah, I think that's one of the important things here. Same with your mortgages, that people often just sign up to an electricity company and don't think to review it. So I think maybe annually doing a review, working out what's out there, what's available, and potentially even just switching plans can put you on to a more cost-effective option for you.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of great comparison websites as well. I mean, I must admit, I sometimes fall into the trap of getting those renewal notices from my energy company saying, oh, your plan is about to roll over into a new plan, and you put that in your to-do list, but it's quite low priority, and then 4 or 5 months later you still haven't actually shopped around and looked at other options. But we might include a link in this blog to a website that's really good at a comparison type website, so that you can just do a quick, easy comparison to see where you can move to the best energy and gas options for you.
Yeah, I think the other one is potentially a bigger investment, but a longer term investment is exploring your options with regards to solar energy or putting a battery on your property, which we understand can be a bigger outlay, but we do have some banks at the moment that actually reward clients for making their house more energy efficient in the way of a cheaper interest rate. So again, something to talk to your mortgage broker about and potentially take advantage of some of those deals that are available.
Absolutely, and not only is that great for your pocket, but also great for the environment, so that's a double win. I know that since we put in solar panels in our house, it's been actually really exciting to see. I now have this little app on my phone which tells me how much energy we're producing and how much energy we're using, and it's actually really interesting to be able to have that information. So I think it's really changed the way that we use our energy in our house as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a shout out to Lauren, Jason, Vicky, Sam, Sean, Corey. Thanks so much for joining in, guys. Really appreciate your time. If you've got any suggestions or tips you want to add or any questions for us, we're here live today, so please post them through in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. What was the next biggest pain point that people were worried about?
Yeah,
Kristen?
So this one was pretty much in line with your energy and gas, and it was concern about interest rate movements.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is indeed. And look, we're all feeling the squeeze at the moment. And I think the interesting things that came out of the report, of the people interviewed in the Canstar report, were that 15% of the people interviewed had reviewed their home loan, switched and saved a considerable amount of money.
Yes.
8% of the people had tried, but their financial position, wasn't, allowing them to switch lenders, but at least they had reviewed it. But the scary thing for me is that 77% of the people interviewed hadn't even thought about reviewing their home loan.
Yeah, I think it's, it is so important to constantly review your home loan because obviously when you set it up, you obviously try and go for the most attractive offer for you at that point in time. But things are constantly changing, and it's really important to constantly review it. I know that we have a review team at Rise High who basically all they do is review existing customers' loans and reprice them with the existing banks to try and get them better discounts and renegotiate their rates. And just last month alone, just from doing that, The team saved our clients over $150,000 just from, and these clients didn't have to move bank, didn't have to change their loan, didn't have to refinance, didn't have to provide any financial information, simply just, asking the bank for a better discount and getting that through. So it is super important that you're doing that. If you're a client of Rise High, we do that for you on an annual basis, and that's a free service that we provide. But if your mortgage broker is not doing that for you, it's really important that you are taking that initiative yourself, or we'd be happy to do that for you for free as well, even if you're not an existing Rise High client. So super important to ask for the extra discounts, make sure that you're reviewing your loan regularly, and really getting those repayments down as low as possible.
And I think it's one of those things that if you do review, you haven't reviewed your mortgage in a long time, you do it, and Rise High, or you're able to save a significant amount by putting pressure, getting a lower interest rate. A lot of those concerns in the things that we've just listed above, your groceries,
Absolutely.
your energy, your gas, you're freeing up more money to be able to easily cope with those increases. So by making that one phone call or making that one change, you're able to, relieve the pressure in a lot of other areas of your life. So it's really important.
That's so true. And for most Australian families, their mortgage repayments are their biggest monthly expense. So a little bit of movement on that can make a massive difference to your weekly and monthly budget. So definitely, if that's an area that's worrying you, we'd love to talk to you about that to see how we can help. And our service is free, so you've got nothing to lose by exploring what are the possibilities to make that more manageable moving forward. What was the fifth biggest area?
Yep, so the last thing on the list, I guess, of major concerns that Australians were worried about was petrol prices.
Petrol.
So it's something, I guess, that has always been on the list, but with all of what's happening in the world and even outside of Australia, petrol prices are of a concern.
So what can people do if they're worried about petrol prices?
Yeah, so I think, and it's something, being in Adelaide, we've never looked fondly upon public transport.
Yeah.
But if you haven't done it for a while, it's worth exploring. And that can definitely save some costs, not just in petrol, but then, potentially parking if you're paying for parking at work as well. And then there are some bigger investments that you could potentially make as well. So looking at switching to a hybrid car or a plug-in car, potentially, especially if you've got solar.
Yes.
So you can reduce a lot of those costs. Or, good old-fashioned using your legs to walk, or riding places potentially.
Yeah, we're lucky in Adelaide that we generally have good weather. So
yeah, absolutely. So definitely a few common sense things you can do there.
Yeah, might also be good on the waistline as well.
Absolutely, especially after Christmas.
And also some of those other points that you did about, moving to a hybrid car. We potentially can get some reduced interest rate loans for that from, some of our ethical lending partners as well. So there are definitely options there that can be great for your pocket and great for the environment. So that's definitely a positive. We've actually got a really great handout which has hundreds of ideas of how you can actually save money. So if you're finding the weekly budget to be a little bit tight, or you just want to find extra ways that you can save money to maybe pay off your mortgage faster or just top up those savings, we'll include a link to that handout in the blog post for this video so that you can refer to it, and hopefully there you'll find some ideas that will help you to save more money in 2023 and achieve your goals. What were some of the other points that came out in the report that are worth mentioning, Kristen?
Yeah, so there were a few other interesting statistics that did come out of the report. One was around debt levels. Mm-hmm. So this was excluding mortgages, home loans, investment loans. So more around your personal debt, which include personal loans, HECS debts, buy now, pay later type debt. Yep. And one of the interesting things that came out of 2022 is that people generally reduced their personal debt levels. So they were reduced by around 43%. So on average...
That's great, isn't it?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Personal debt levels coming down from about 46,000 in 2021, reducing to around 13,000 in 2022. So that's a really good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess for those, looking to pay off their loans faster, what I always suggest clients do is if you were paying a HECS debt or you were paying a personal loan, is potentially now to put that money into your home loan.
Yep.
So that can assist with raising rates, and that can help you to pay off your loan a little bit faster.
And significantly reduce the interest rate and the repayment on that loan. And yeah, definitely. Yep. Well, I think that's really positive. I mean, people did save a lot of money during COVID, didn't they? Because they weren't going out as much and
not traveling
as much. So definitely there was a lot of exciting things there. So that was really great. What about savings?
Yeah, so I guess savings definitely dipped in the last 12 months, and again potentially due to saving more over COVID. People had a bit of a buffer. And they are finding that around 38% of Australians did dip into their savings in 2022.
Yep.
So whether that was to help pay down some of that debt, but also to help cope with inflation and the rising interest rates and things like that.
And it might have also been in relation to, a lot of people were buying new houses in 2022, so maybe they were dipping into savings to fund their house purchase or renovate or extend their house. So lots of reasons for that. But generally speaking, like I said, I think we learnt how to be better savers during COVID, and maybe since COVID has sort of calmed down a bit, we've started spending a bit too much now, which is obviously the inflation. But it's about finding that happy medium moving forward, isn't it? Where's the happy level between living the lifestyle that we want and making sure that we are having a really healthy savings figure on the side. And finally, what was the last thing?
So housing affordability was something that came up in the report as well. So people's attitudes towards how they're feeling going forward about purchasing a new property.
Housing affordability is one of those things where there's always conflicting reports about it. You can pick up any type of media and there'll be some that say it's really bad and some that say it's really good. I was reading a report this morning that was saying that more than 50% of first home buyers are really confident that they're going to be able to buy their first home and afford to buy their first home in the place that they want to buy within the next 5 years, which I think is a really positive statistic. But I think what I would say is that even though interest rates have gone up, they are still affordable, and we are finding that there are definitely still affordable options, and the property market sort of settled down a little bit now, which is definitely a plus for home buyers in terms of not having to have that stress or anxiety over missing out on properties because the prices are just rising so quickly. So I think things are looking pretty positive for housing affordability. What do you think, Kristen?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, again, as we mentioned earlier, sitting down with a mortgage broker sooner rather than later and being able to put a plan in place so that you know what savings target you need to hit. If you've got some personal debt, whether to focus on paying that down first. So I think that's really important in being able to help people achieve that goal of purchasing the next property.
Absolutely. Well, at Rise High, we're committed to helping you achieve your 2023 financial goals. So whatever they are, whether they're to do with money, property, finance, or whether you just need some help and some coaching and some mentoring, whatever you need help with, we're here for you. And our service is fee-free, so please reach out. We'd love to help you and help make 2023 the best year for you yet. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.